Hello everyone, and welcome to your NARSA weekly update for the week commencing Monday, the 1st of September 2025. It's Gary here. Again, it's kind of unusual to have the first of a month on a Monday, isn't it? So what I'd like to do is start off by wishing everyone in North America a very happy Labour Day. One of the kind of few holidays that we have here in North America that align perfectly between both countries. So everyone's had a wee bit of a day off. And I'm recording a wee bit later today. Right now, what time is it now? 2:44 p.m. because I was trying to get as much action and activity from the transfer window as possible. So I'm hoping I've hit a sweet spot here and there's no other major surprises that are going to make an entrance over the next wee while, because I think for the majority of what we're actually going to be doing, I think that the business has been done. I hope, I think. Not 100% sure. I'll get to that in a wee second. But in terms of the team, I guess the transfer window came at a really good time for us, didn't it? Because it ends up, it comes off the back of another draw in the league, which you'll get to here shortly. But it wasn't a great week for our club, was it? With the Champions League exit at the playoff round, they are firmly in our history books, and it was just a horrendous evening. And it's one of these kind of things for me. It's like, the more things change, the more that they stay the same or something like that. Anyway, we obviously endured a very difficult week with that battering that we received in Belgium. And then we get the news on the weekend. The press conference that Russell Martin did on Friday was a wee bit odd, let's just say. He wasn't really articulating himself that well, and I don't know that the communications folks really supported him well enough in the room either. But then it comes to pass that our best player, certainly one of our best players, Nico Raskin, is completely booted out of the squad. We don't have a luxury of really, really good players in the squad. So when we have one who's, whatever is going on in the background in terms of maybe some petulance or engineering a move or whatever that looks like, booting him out for the biggest domestic game of the season just seems odd. It seems like counterproductive behaviour to me. And then, of course, we get what we get in the game. We don't have his energy or his effort or, his enthusiasm, essentially, for playing in some of the bigger games. I have to say, the manager, especially after midweek, maybe it's been dissipated a wee bit, but the calls for his head so early into his tenure, what's that, 11 games now? And we've only won 3 of the 11, and we haven't even won a domestic game yet. I mean, that's absolutely incredible. So the calls for his head are getting louder and louder and louder. So probably the international break coming up here, as it has kind of crept up quite quickly there, actually is probably best for everyone connected with the club. Get the new signings in, get them bedded in, really start to get to work with these guys, get a wee bit of a breather, think about what has and hasn't worked over the last wee while, and then see what it looks like, because it doesn't look like the owners are going to take any affirmative action to remove the manager for right now, or the head coach, I guess I should say, on that. So what do we know about the transfer deadline day? We do know that Oscar Cortez has gone to Sporting Gijon in the Spanish second division, and just before recording it was confirmed that we did complete the signing of Derek Cornelius from on loan move from Marseille, another centre back there, and he's Canadian, so that's kind of cool to see. It's always nice when you get something from the country here, and it will be good to see how he does over the next wee while. The fact that he plays for Marseille is impressive in and of itself, so hopefully he's a decent player. I don't know anything at all about him. And we also confirmed the permanent transfer of Youssef Chermiti. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce his last name yet, but signed. I mean, they're doing this undisclosed fee thing for every single one of the transfers, it seems to be. But the word is that it's about a 10 million transfer package, with add-ons over and above the 8 million fee, if you believe what has been read or what has been put out there on the internet. The challenge with him is, again, don't really know anything about him. Obviously, Kevin Thelwell knows him from his time at Everton, and as part of the interview that I just read not long prior to recording, they had been keeping in touch for quite some time over when the transfer window opened and such like that. So there's obviously some history there, but he doesn't really have a great goal scoring record, and has a bit of a sit down for this part, has a bit of an injury hit past over the last wee while. So that kind of just sounds about right for us, doesn't it? Oh, I don't know that we'll ever get beyond the the fear when we sign players that have got a wee bit of a dodgy past. So hopefully that's all behind him. Now, young man signed, what was that, 4 or 5 year deal, 4 year deal, something like that, and he seems to be buzzing, absolutely buzzing to be with us. So that's great news. We do know that Cyril Dessers has officially gone to Panathinaikos as well, and nothing at the time of recording, or certainly prior to recording, hadn't heard anything about Nico Raskin as to whether he was actually leaving or not. I can't even remember if there was any rumours of any specific destinations, but now the English transfer window has closed, and we didn't hear anything about a deal sheet being put in. The deal sheet system seems to be, if you don't get everything done in time, you've got 2 hours after the window to conclude and confirm absolutely everything from an admin perspective, and I haven't heard anything there. So is he going anywhere? Is he going to somewhere else that still has the transfer window open? Or did we get an opportunity for cooler heads to prevail and sit and think about exactly what's happening, and then, get him back in the squad, get him back in the team, and figure out what that means between now and at least now and the next transfer window? Not 100% sure, but it would be great. I certainly didn't want to lose him. He has a real shining light in this otherwise, what would you say, inconsistent side that we have right now. So that's some decent business, getting some money in. They're getting a wee bit of help and support on the salary side, on the wages side, with their loan players going out and getting some new blood in. That must be, what would that be now, like 13 players signed or something, 10, 11, 12, 13? That's quite a lot. I mean, it's obviously in the fullness of time, it's going to determine how or at all whether they're actually going to be a success in the squad, but hopefully, we get a wee bit more traction now to see what this next 2 weeks brings, and we've got a bit of a doozy in terms of our start afterwards anyway, so we'll see. So the game segment, this is going to be quick. Both of them are going to be quick, I think. The first one, of course, is the 6-0 battering away to Bruges. Just an absolutely terrible start to the game again. We've got Magoma booked in the first, two or 3 or 4 minutes, something like that, and then we didn't close the cross down, and then Juga completely ball watching, and for their guy to steal in and get us 1-0 down within the space of a few minutes, and then you've got Aaron's doing what he did, as soon as we watched it, I was watching it with my niece Chloe, and as soon as he did what he did, Chloe said he chucked it, and I agreed instantly, and that seems to be the common consensus amongst Rangers fans that I've spoken to anyway, that he just didn't fancy it, and he just decided, I'm going to get myself out of there. And while I kind of understand that and understand frustration, and you don't want to be humiliated and things like that, that's not what you've been paid to do. You've been paid to play football, and if he doesn't learn from this, he's going to be in the sin bin forever. It was good to see that he kind of got himself overlooked for the weekend's game there anyway, but yeah, just a completely naive, very, very selfish, self-motivated move there. And if it wasn't for Jack Butland, we would have been, that could have been double figures. And you see Bruges taking the foot off the gas a wee bit. I thought we kind of warmed up a wee bit better in the second half there, but just absolutely awful. I don't know if it's bad going out like that, or bad going out the way that mob from the East End went out against a team we've never heard of, who ranked like 320th in the world or something like that. Both sting, we know that. And, the Champions League was a long shot for us, but you dare to dream. I think I said that last week on the pod, didn't I? And when you've got that opportunity to dream, and you're kind of like, well, you never know, you get an extra cut, an early goal, or some chances and such. But no, we just completely undone ourselves in the first 5 or 10 minutes, and then the rest of it was chasing our tails. We had a free header where Danilo is marking. Did you see that? Where Danilo's marking basically their tallest player, and it's another set-piece goal lost, of course, to make it 2-0. We're just all over the place at this point, and we're getting absolutely destroyed down the left-hand side, weren't we? And then a fortunate deflection for their player to go 3-0, then we're not tracking the man 4-0, and then another ball from the left-hand side, then another free header for 5-0 at half-time, right on half-time. I mean, that was 3 goals we lost in the last 4 minutes. 3 goals for professional football at this level in the last 4 minutes of that half. Absolutely unbelievable. And then you can add in the 6th goal there, a quick-fire goal at the start of the second half to make it 5 goals in 8 minutes. 5 goals in 8 minutes at Champions League level. Absolutely naive beyond belief. And then we had, what did we have then? Danilo, I think we had 1 shot or something like that, a couple of shots, but Danilo had a shot just before the hour mark and managed to injure himself shooting. I think it was at the overhead kick one that I think he did. So Yeah, not much more to write home about it. You seen it, you at least seen the score, and it was devastating. We were absolutely miles and miles and miles off it, and it was humiliating. But Europa League it is for us, and we already have our fixture list out and confirmed for that, and the packages are out for sale for that as well for the season ticket holders at Ibrox. So it's all kind of moving at a pace. Positives. I mean, how can there be positives in terms of a 6-0 defeat? But for me, the positive was Jack Butland. He was brilliant. You know, he absolutely no fault for any of the 6 goals lost, and he was saving right, left, and centre as well. It could have been much worse. Negatives, basically everything and everyone apart from Super Jack Butland, I would say. And the stats said we had 28% possession, 2 shots on goal with 1 on target, the one I was maybe just telling you about there, versus 27 shots on goal with 16 on target. So they scored, what was that be, just about a third of their chances, and Super Jack Butland saved the other 2/3. So that gives you an idea of how bad it really could have been. In terms of the ref watch, nothing really. I thought he was a wee bit quick to book Magoma at the very beginning, but other than that, he did his job okay. Nothing. He wasn't at fault for or to blame for anything of our own doing. So he'll get the standard 7/10. And the next game was yesterday's snore draw, wasn't it? Wasn't it? There was absolutely almost absolutely nothing happened in the game, an Old Firm game, where both teams really truly looked like they would have settled for a 0-0 draw at the very beginning. You know, it's almost like they could have shaken hands in the tunnel and said, look, let's not bother today, boys. You take one, we'll take one, and then we'll just go into this international break and see what it looks like. It was one of the most uneventful Old Firm games that I can remember. And in testimony to how the team are doing, we had 7.5 people down at the Calgary Rangers club there yesterday. One of the boys left at half time, so he is the designated half. It's a sign of the times. It's absolutely what the team have to start winning, and they have to start getting as excited, and they have to start really doing their jobs actually before people are going to come back. So no criticism of anyone for not coming along, but it's a worry when you're going down there at 5 in the morning. You're only getting 7.5 people there. And I thought that both teams really just kind of cancelled themselves out, didn't they? You know, and they, as I said, they seem to be happy to settle for the point. You know, we did have the ball in the back of the net. It was offside from Suter, a good header though. And that, as I mentioned earlier there, I mean, that's 4 draws to start the season, you know, with a Dundee and a Motherwell and such, and a St Mirren in there, you know. I don't think anybody could have predicted that. You know, we've scored 3 goals in 4 games. You know, we never got a goal yesterday. Just absolutely bizarre start to the season. We've signed a lot of players, as I mentioned, and hopefully they get this next 2 weeks to really bed themselves in, really start to figure out what the instructions are. It doesn't. I mean, yesterday was pretty compact. I didn't think it was terrible or anything like that. You know, and then it was a wee bit more safe, I think, than we would maybe have liked at Ibrox. You want to kind of go after them, but you know, it's an incredible start to the season, not in a good way, of course. In terms of the positives, I thought we played pretty well overall, as I mentioned there. I never felt in any danger from them, you know, and it doesn't seem to be that they have their troubles to seek either. I thought Diomande and Conor Barron played really well in the game, and as I say, John Suter was very unlucky. He was offside, but very unlucky. Just we could have maybe sneaked a win there. In terms of the negatives, it was a bit of a drag, to be dead honest. You know, it wasn't very entertaining. I think it's probably the best thing to say about it. But, you know, it's another point, and it's a point we didn't have before the game started. And based on how things had went midweek, any sort of result yesterday was going to be very, very, very important for us in there. In terms of the stats, live score tells me that we had 41% possession, 2 shots on goal with 1 on target, versus 4 shots on goal and 2 on target for them. So fairly kind of even. They were giving up a lot of possession, but they didn't really seem to do much with it as well. And then in terms of the ref watch, I thought Don Robertson's just a bit of an idiot of a ref. We get 3 players booked. None of their players booked for the exact same things that we get booked for. So he's getting a... I'm going to be generous, actually, since it's the international break, and he's going to get a 5/10. It really should be a 4, but it wasn't his fault that we didn't win the game, and we'll just need to take that and move on, but just not a great referee overall. As I mentioned, it's the international break, so there are no games to look forward to for this week, no domestic games to look forward to for us. And the next games after that, as I mentioned very briefly earlier there, we've got 3 home games actually after that. We've got Hibs, Sorry, we've got Hearts, and then we've got Hibs, and then we've got Genk in the Europa League as well. So a wee break, a wee breather, a wee chance to kind of forget about Rangers for a wee bit, and then just recharge the batteries and move on from there. In terms of shout-outs, I mentioned her very briefly earlier. I would like to do a very special shout-out to my lovely niece Chloe Carey, who completed her degree yesterday. Actually, I think it was today. It was confirmed that her final class was successfully navigated, and she now has her degree, her business degree, and the whole world is now opening up for you, Chloe, to be able to go and do whatever it is you feel like doing. It was. I know it was a slog for you, and it's very, very. It's very, very poignant and very, very important for you to complete your studies, and you did a great job on that. So I'm sure you won't miss the late night studying and the early time exams and running around to my house to get your cheat sheets printed out and stuff before your exams. Not that you were cheating, but your one pagers and things like that. Happy to be helping you. Just be a very, very small part of your journey, but fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Very, very well done and very, very well deserved. My beautiful baby boy, let's keep it in the family here again. He starts grade 11 tomorrow. So by the time you listen to this, I don't think I get allowed to go to school anymore to take photographs of him outside. That was done in last year. So I'll get to take a photograph of him in the driveway, and then he'll just speed away in his car. So grade 11, the time is just absolutely zipping by. And just a quick reminder in terms of the shout outs that Amanda and Jason Jr. Ross are running the London Marathon in April in support of the Royal British Legion. I'll leave the link for that in the show notes. And another shout out here for the Melbourne City Loyal Rangers Supporters Club Culture Weekend, November 21st to 22nd, with Ian Ferguson, Gary Stevenson, Stuart Munro, boat cruise, gala dinner, a whole bunch of entertainment and such. Going to be a great time. I am absolutely sure about that. In terms of NARSA Business for this week, I mentioned it briefly over the last couple of shows that we are going to be, if you're subscribed to the NARSA mailing list, if you've went on and put your email address into our website, you will be getting an email from us, and it's going to include a survey. I can't remember how many questions we actually ended up landing on, but we were going to do a kind of two-tiered survey, one that was high level, have you attended before, what encourages you to attend and what maybe discourages you from attending and such. And then if you were interested, we were then going to put it into a more deeper detailed one. We've just decided to keep it just as one, and it should take you roughly about 5 minutes to complete, so it's not going to be super onerous or anything like that. And really ultimately what we're looking for is information. Have you attended conventions? What's the main motivating factor for you to attend? What would really put you off from attending? Any ideas, suggestions, topics, tricks, or anything you'd like us to know about? And we really just want to start to use that information. We should have done this over the previous years, but we have a crack team now that are really getting the job done. Brian's had a great start here in terms of the convention director, so we have access to this wealth of information. We've never really tapped into it, so I'm delighted that we're going to be doing that. So I think we're probably going to be sending out early this week, maybe tomorrow, or possibly Wednesday, something like that. But if you get it in your inbox, or if you don't get it and you think you're subscribed already, go look in your junk folder, please, and get that filled in and get it back to us. It's actually the survey itself is going to be embedded within the email itself. We can do that within MailChimp, which is our email service provider. So it should be dead easy. You're not clicking links and going all over the place or anything like that. It should be in good shape to get that done. So we would really, really, really appreciate you taking the time to provide that feedback for us. Excuse me. And yeah, Brian will get that out here as quickly as we possibly can. Great to see some movement on that. We did have our NARSA executive meeting last week. I gave you a wee bit of an update on some of the things that Alan was going to take the team through. And it was a great meeting, very nice and pleasant. And it's nice to look forward to these meetings again and give ourselves an opportunity to actually support each other, make some meaningful progress, have a bit of debate and then kind of move on from there. So some updates from your president, Alan McWatt. We did have some sound challenges, you'll probably know if you watched the game on RTV yesterday. So they are still being investigated right now. It's just so odd. It seems... I automatically assumed it was the setup we had in Pinbar here in Calgary, so I'm trying to log back in, trying to figure it all out, and I'm like, I don't even know what's happening. And then all of a sudden it became kind of known that it was a wider spread challenge that all clubs were experiencing, and it's just not good enough. It's just... I don't know what sort of testing they're doing beforehand, but I mean, the two main things you need sound and you need visuals, and we had one of the two, and I don't know how they managed to get that organised. By all accounts, the the feed of both sound and the visual and audio feed went out, but for whatever reason, when it went through all the technical broadcast things that have to happen, the sound got dropped, and then it was only after a refresh, after about, what was it, like about maybe 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that. It was one of these situations where it's such a pest. So Alan and Dan Bransfield are on the case with that, and we're going to get a better answer for you. Hopefully have that for you for next week. The convention survey I told you about already. We also have Alan and Gary Fleming, the VP, doing a bit of a roadshow to try and talk to the various member clubs just to see how the NARSA executive can support them better, if there's anything that they want us to know and such. So I know that they've been putting some canvases out there. Some of the feedback's been a wee bit slow. So if your club has not announced yet that there is actually going to be that meeting, please do ask your club committee, or if you're on the committee, please do respond to the email so that we can get that scheduled up for you, and then have a blether, basically, do some proper member engagement. Good for the guys for really progressing with that. We do have some interviews for our commercial director, our sponsorship and marketing director. They are underway right now, so hopefully maybe between now and next week we'll get an opportunity to have that role filled, and then we have a full complement of the entire exec, all positions being filled, which is going to be great. And one thing that Alan did have a conversation with the ticket office last week about was the timelines involved in requesting tickets if you're heading back home. And it's basically as much notice as we can possibly give the ticket office is ideal. Anything that's a wee bit last minute, you're going to get what you're going to get. If you decide to book a trip at the last minute and then you try and get a ticket, don't be surprised if it doesn't work out the way you're hoping it's going to work out. But they kind of gave us a roughly like anything around about 3 week mark, 3 week and beyond mark would be great for them, so that they can add us to the list, and we can get the best opportunity to see if we can have some success there. So yeah, as much notice. If you know when you're going away, just reach out to Gary Fleming, and he'll get you added to the list and keep you posted on that. Have a very, very, maybe I should have done this in the shout outs, but it isn't typically, technically NARSA Business. We have 2 new clubs that we are welcoming to the NARSA family. The first one is what is it called now? I've got Grey Goose, but I don't think it is Grey Goose. Grey Bruce, that's what it is. The Grey Bruce Loyal Ranger Supporters Club, started by our very own Dan Bransfield. He moved from the Ontario, where is it, Cambridge. He moved from Cambridge to this area, Grey Bruce, and has his club. That was one of the first things that he got organised when he got there, and he has a bona fide, fully fledged member club there. And we also have Victoria in the beautiful island of Vancouver Island. And the Victoria, we've been speaking to Victoria for a number of years, actually, trying to see whether they would be willing to come on board, and they've come on board. And the information I have, I'm pretty sure, is they are associate members of NARSA. I'm absolutely delighted to have them. That was one of the last things I actually did during my presidency, was have some conversations with them, get their form in, and then we were going to try and get them on board a lot quicker. And then we had that 5 weeks of madness afterwards. So they very politely stayed in the background until all things settled down, and then we've got all the boys and girls over in Victoria. So yeah, both ends of Canada doing a thing for the NARSA membership there. So great stuff. And if you're in either of those areas, you have a friendly place to go and get all things Rangers consumption there for you as well. We're also going to be meeting with Greg Marshall, the supporters liaison officer from Rangers, and that's going to be sometime. He's going to meet with the executive team sometime in October. We're going to put an agenda and such together to give ourselves an opportunity to have some active ongoing dialogue. We're looking to try and do this at least once a quarter. And Greg has offered up, if there's specific needs of a specific club at some point in the future, he would be willing to meet with them. Ideally, we can broker that on your behalf as well, of course. So good to see that engagement. The clubs has been up and down like a yo-yo for years and years and years. So they end up kind of firefighting a lot of the time, which, they actually end up kind of being arsonists, to be dead honest. They kind of create a lot of fires for themselves. But it's good to see Greg getting a bit of an opportunity to be able to move forward with some of his strategies in and around fan engagement. So a bit closer to the time, I'll tell you a bit more about that, and certainly give you an idea of what we discussed. We'll definitely publish the minutes and such of that. RTV, just back to RTV very briefly. We do have, now that the Old Firm game and we're in the international break, we're going to be, for clubs that need new codes, some of the codes that were given were in error. I think, for example, Calgary, we don't take midweek games, but we were given a code that included all games. So we're in a situation now where we're going to just right size all the codes. If you need a new code that's commensurate with the actual packages that you subscribe to, then that will be happening over the next wee while. Dan and Beth and such will get that information to you. So that's coming up over the next wee while. And the last thing from an admin perspective is we've just been working on getting our banking organised and getting all the signers transitioned over to Andy Burnett and also Gary Fleming as well. So Andy has been busy doing that in the background, and we've got our credit cards updated in our MailChimp system and our podcast system and things like that as well. So just some tidy up things that, it's not super sexy, but very, very important nonetheless for us. So it's good to get that sort of stuff done. In terms of the communications, no Jers guide again this week. It just seems to be one of these nice to have things. If they've got a bit of time to do it and they'll do it, fair enough. If they don't, they're not going to do it. But again, today was transfer deadline day, so that's probably the most important parts of communicating for today. So nothing there, but with it being the international break, I don't imagine there's going to be a whole hell of a lot of action or activity going on other than maybe a wee bit of a break and then some training and such like that. So we'll see what that looks like. The Rangers women's team beat Motherwell 2-1 on the weekend there, and they're now second in the table, albeit that Glasgow City have a game in hand. So you would imagine Glasgow City are most likely going to win that game if they haven't already. Maybe they played it today, I'm not sure. And they're already a wee bit behind in terms of goal difference. It's not very often you see the women's team with a goal scoreline of 2-1 that's not against Glasgow City or Hibs or the mob from the East End there. So I don't know what happened there, but it doesn't seem like Leanne Crichton is quite as prevalent in terms of her results and such as Joe Potter was. It was going to take her a wee bit of time, I guess. I mentioned briefly earlier that our Europa League fixtures have been confirmed, and I'll just go through super quick. They start for us on the 25th of September. So what's that going to be? That's going to be 3 weeks on Thursday. And then we go through, and that's at home to Genk. I mentioned that briefly earlier. And then we are away to Sturm Graz. We are away to SK Brann. We are at home to Roma. That'll be a beauty. We're at home to Braga. We're away to Ferencvaros. And then we're at home to Ludogorets. And then our very last game, which is, this takes us all the way through to the end of January, is away to Porto, our old foes in Europe there. That was some great battles against them over the years as well. So it'd be great to renew those acquaintances. And most of the games are 8 o'clock UK time. There's a couple that are 5:45 p.m. UK time, so that'll be kind of 12:45 Eastern time for us. But we'll get them communicated as we go forward. And as I mentioned, if you're a season ticket holder, the season tickets have gone out for the 4-match package for the home games, and I believe it comes out to £44 per ticket. I think that's what Billy Reid was saying on the NARSA chat earlier today, so that's quite good. And one last wee bit of information I thought you might be interested in. There's going to be a VAR review show that they're starting after the international break here, and it's going to be on Sky Sports. So if you have a subscription to Sky Sports, you'll be able to see that, and it's going to be with the Scottish FA VAR review show. It's going to be hosted by a guy called Gordon Duncan, and as the SFA's head, as well as the SFA's head of refereeing, Willie Collum, and they'll look back at the key incidents and have a discussion around what those look like. And the first episode is going to be Friday the 12th, so a week on Friday. And once I guess there's not going to be domestic football to talk about at that particular point, but maybe they'll just get going with international football or talk about some of the stuff from this past weekend or something like that. And I think it's going to be monthly. I believe the show is going to be monthly, and it's going to continue through the entire season. So we'll get a chance for a wee bit more of the analytics that we're looking for, and some explanations to see whether we can disagree even more with Willie Collum and his team and such. But that'll be something to maybe keep an eye on. I'll maybe even try and keep an eye on that properly, and I'll add a wee segment in here if it's worthy of that. 5 Stars have an evening with Barry Ferguson, Alan McGregor, Neil McCann and Billy Dodds at the Doubletree by Hilton Glasgow Central. That's on the 3rd of January, the Saturday. And I'll just keep mentioning that between now and then. I've joked over the last couple of weeks that they might actually be our management team again by then. Something has to give for Russell Martin. We need to start picking up wins in the league. We need to start playing proper, better football, and then to have the enjoyment factor come back. And then everything else will take care of itself. The fans will start to come back. We'll start to enjoy it. We'll start to really get a lot of enthusiasm about it, as well. So that will do it for this week, my friends. As always, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you very, very, very much for taking the time to listen. And please do share it with whomever you think might enjoy it. We get a wee breather this week, and it will be good, as I said earlier, it will be good to kind of minimise the negativity a wee bit, turn our attentions to figuring out a little bit more about the new guys and getting hopefully some really, really important strategic and tactical time on the training pitch, so that we can start and come back with a real bang. 3 home wins would be absolutely appreciated. So until next week, please do take care of yourself, and I will chat to you then. Follow.